Welcome to another episode of Coach Hates Football. Coaches, today we're going to talk about offensive personnel packages and how to identify them. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you're aware of the new content that'll be coming out. All right, coaches, so we're back. Okay, we're talking about personnel packages from an offensive perspective. And again, you hear this all the time, especially if you're watching games. You know, they're in 11 personnel, 20 personnel, 21 personnel, 10 personnel. When you hear that, what they're simply talking about is the group of players that they want to come onto the field. The amount of running backs, the amount of tight ends, and the amount of receivers that they want to come in to run a particular play. All right? So again, this is a way to get groups on and off the field in a hurry. The players know what personnel group they're in. So as you hear, on the sideline sometimes, 21 personnel, they know that group of kids or that group of players goes out onto the field waiting for whatever play call is to be called in the huddle. Okay? It's an easy way to transition different personnel for specific plays that you may want to run. All right? Also, offenses are getting very creative now, okay, because from a defensive perspective, we know that we're looking for specifically the tight end, right? So if number 80 is the tight end for this game, and you have a spotter coach over there on defense, usually he's in the booth, we spot number 80. We know if number 80 comes in, that's a tight end. We're typically looking at a 21 personnel package from a defensive side, 11 personnel package from a defensive side. All right, one of these packages that includes a tight end. But how offenses are getting creative is they're bringing in those packages, okay, because defenses typically try and match up personnel for personnel. So what they'll do is bring in a tight end, but also do what we call a 10 picture. So you'll have 11 personnel on the field, but line up in a 10 personnel formation, like 4 wide, 3 by 1, whatever the case may be. So let's take it over here to the whiteboard and let's look at some examples of different personnel packages. All right, so now we're here on the whiteboard. I have up here pretty much a basic chart on personnel grouping and personnel packages. As you see right here, we're going to start off with personnel group 00. What that simply means, the first number goes to the running back. The second number goes to the tight end. Wide receivers are left off. Why? Because you only get 5 eligible receivers. So if you know that you have, 2 running backs, for example, and 1 tight end, then that means there's 3 wide receivers in the game. So that's very self-explanatory. As we see personnel group number 10 here, there's 1 running back, 0 tight ends. That means there's 4 wide receivers in the game. 11, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers in the game. 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, and 2 wide receivers in the game, so forth and so on. You can mix these numbers up any way you choose to based on your personnel packages. You can do 30 personnel, that's 3 running backs, no tight ends, that means there's 2 wide receivers. I've seen 32 personnel, that's typically a goal line, where it's 3 running backs in the game, right, when you see the wishbone, and double tight end. So again, I just put this chart up here so you can see an example of what a personnel grouping chart looks like. All right, real brief examples. 0 personnel. We already talked about that. 0 running backs, 0 tight ends. That's typically your 5 wide formations. All right, offenses are running those all the time now. But when you see that, what happens? You usually give 5 wide. That's your prevent, Hail Mary, so forth and so on. All right, and what defenses are doing are trying to match up. When that defensive coach upstairs that's spotting, he says, look, there's no tight ends, no running backs in the game. You try and match that up from a defensive standpoint with dime personnel. Okay, you bring more DBs in the game. Why? Because they have more wide receivers. Let's go to the next one. 10 personnel, 1 running back, 0 tight ends, right? So that gives you 4 wide receivers in the game. So that spotting coach upstairs, he sees the running back. Number 22 is the primary running back. He doesn't see number 80 come in, who typically plays tight end. You know what? He's yelling down 10, 10, 10, meaning 10 personnel. And that means that we're still trying to match up with dime personnel or even maybe some nickel personnel from a defensive standpoint. And here you get a 2x2 look. So that's with a typical spread. Also, 10 personnel can give you a 3x1. So you typically know if we hear 10 personnel, typically you're going to get these two formations, a 2-by-2 and a 3-by-1. All right, 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers. What happens in that? You're going to get that 1 tight end that's on the ball. What happens? You get 3 wide receivers and a tight end. You know that's either going to bring him in, maybe he can be an extra guy blocking on the line. But again, it helps you from a defensive perspective on how to kind of line up. You may want to go your base personnel, or you may even want to go nickel personnel because they do have that 3rd wide receiver in the game. Here's another formation, 3-by-1 with the tight end, okay? I call it Trey simply because it's 3 for Trey, but the Y stands for tight end, so it's a Trey formation for myself, all right? So these are your 2 typical formations when you get 11 personnel. 12 personnel, all right? This is your double tight. So when you hear 12 personnel, you know there's going to be 1 running back, but it's 2 tight ends. So now you're thinking your base formation. You may want to bring in an extra guy. You may even want to bring in a 5th defensive lineman, okay? So that's what happens there. You get a double tight formation and 2 wide receivers and a single back, okay? Yeah, some people call it ace. Here's another look. You're starting to get this look a lot now. You're getting the tight end with the wing and the 2 wide receivers. So offensively, you're getting the best of both worlds. You get a run-heavy side, okay, if you want to run the ball. And guess what? You get a pass-easy side because the guys are spread out and you have detached wide receivers. 20 personnel, okay? This is 2 backs and 3 wide receivers, no tight end, okay? No tight end. So now, again, this is the best of both worlds. Offensively, you have a run set because you got 2 backs in the backfield, typically a fullback and a running back. And you have 3 wide receivers so you can throw the ball. All right, you can get a lot of RPO stuff off of this. You can get some gap scheme plays off of this, as well as, you know, pull it. Maybe you want to throw the bubble off of it or whatever you want to do. Or you can max protect. Now you have 7 guys in protecting the quarterback with 3 wide receivers, okay? And here's another 21 personnel, okay? So it's 2 running backs, 1 tight end. Run heavy formation. Again, if you want to bring a 5th D lineman in, or you want to go your base packaging, your 4-3 or 3-4, however you want to do it. But you usually take a DB off the field. Why? Because they have more meat on the field. They have more weight on the field. And instead of you bringing in the nickel guy who's probably a little bit lighter, you know, and can't play that heaviness and the weight of that position, they're probably coming downhill on you. Okay, so here we're with the 11 personnel. So 11 personnel comes running out. Coach upstairs is yelling down 11-11. Why? He sees number 22 at running back, and he sees number 80 come out on the field at tight end. So he's saying 11-11. But when they line up, they're in a 10 personnel picture, 4 wide. Okay, and that's very creative from an offensive standpoint. Why? Simply because we sometimes defensively, and I always say we because I am a defensive guy, but defensively, we try and match up personnel-wise, right? So if they're bringing out 11 personnel, you see them coming off the sideline, you're typically thinking they have a run tilt, they're going to run the ball heavy, this, that, and the third. Well, when they come out the huddle and line up, they're in a 10 picture, all right? Meaning a 10 personnel picture, okay? Still has 11 personnel, number 80's out there, but guess what? He might be a great route runner. And that's what started happening with, I remember the Colts used to have Dallas Clark, right? So Dallas Clark would line up at tight end. Someplace he line up out there in the slot. Someplace he'll line up outside of the X, okay? So when guys try to match up the different personnel from a defensive perspective, they came out in a 10 picture and ran vertically down the field, all right? So end up spreading out your guys. Here's another example. 21 personnel, but giving you a 10 picture. You're starting to see this a lot, right? Why? Running backs can catch the ball out the backfield now. All right, used to have just a 3rd down back. Now these guys are lining up like wide receivers. All right, so you get a 21 personnel with a 10 picture. All right, the coach is upstairs. He's yelling 21, 21, 21. All right, why is he yelling 21? He sees the 2 running backs. He may see a fullback. He may see the two running backs who rotate going in, as well as he sees a tight end. Now that he sees that, he's yelling 21, 21, but they come out in a 10 picture. What does that mean? The tight end lines up out in the slot. The running back may line up out there in the slot as well, and the fullback may be in the running back position. So now they're working matchups based on what you have done, okay? So again, that's just a quick overview of personnel packages from an offensive standpoint, maybe how defenses line up against it. And it's all about just terminology. You know, I know some guys, they use different things for their packages. Some guys have used the armed forces, for example, on offense. They may call it the Marines because, you know, the Marines go in first. That's the ground game. All right, Air Force is 10 personnel, 4 wide, okay? Navy may be 11 personnel. Army may be 21 personnel or 12 personnel. So, again, you can name it what you want, but typically what you hear are these numbers. That first number represents the running back, the second number represents the tight end, and of course the wide receiver number is left off because all you have to do is equal it up to 5 because there are only 5 wide receiver or 5 eligible receivers in a game at one time. Okay, guys, I appreciate it. I hope this was helpful, especially for some of you young coaches that are just getting into the game. This is great for you to know. So even if you guys are coaches are coaching at the youth league or the Pee Wee league, this will be a great video to show them, to show your team, to let them know. So what do you mean when you're talking about personnel? Okay. If there's anything else I can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can always hit me up in the comments section. You can either email me as well at coachhayesfootball@gmail.com. Thank you again, and see you at the 50-yard line.